So actually now what we're doing, that we're also recording the classes for future references, okay? And so we will discuss that, and we'll discuss the philosophy of Socrates, and then we'll have our own discussion after that, okay? Then I will intervene, okay? So we started with, philosophy which deals with ethics, right? And first we took it genealogy of ethics and morality, means that evolution of ethics and morality. Then we took a story, okay, which is mentioned in Greek mythology of Gyges, a shepherd, and how the shepherd committed all those acts, right? And then we go on judging various actions from that, okay? But before we start with Greek philosophy, those things we took, those two moral framework, they were consistent with religion, right? First was divine command theory, and second was natural law theory. So natural law theory was an improvement or complement to divine command theory, okay, where we applied nature and reason. But now we'll study Greek philosophy because they are entirely based on reason, logic, okay, and digging deep into things and find the essence of the thing. But it is also important that we relate the other developments that was going on at the Greek, okay, at Mediterranean basin, on our continent, right, on Indian continent. So it was in 6th century BC. In our time, there was a Mahavira was there, Mahavira born and Buddha born, roughly in the same century. They were contemporaries. And we were those developed as a reaction to Vedic rituals, right? Vedic rituals were there, Vedas were there, and the society was divided into fragmented. That's why Buddhism developed and Jainism developed, right? So what our way of finding the truth was based on observation, meditation, right? So basically it was a spiritual pursuit, right? And the religious guru used to enlighten us through sermons, through Sangha, right? And if you take on the Mediterranean basin, so Mediterranean basin start with Socrates, first philosopher, who born 100 years later in 5th century at Mediterranean basin, and their philosophy, their way of finding the truth was based on logic, reason, and observation, right? So they apply their logic, reason, and deduct into the things, that how things are and how it is. While at our place, we use meditation to understand the things, understand the truth. So at both the places, the pursuit was same, to find the truth, to find the meaning of life, right? But methodology was different, right? Even today, our Rishi Muni do meditation to understand the truth, to seek wisdom, right? And purpose of our life. Okay, there was a difference. So this is roughly I have outlined what is the difference, what were the methodologies were there. Okay. So I think Socrates born, I think roughly 100 years after Buddha, right? He born in 6th century BCE, okay, before Christ, and Socrates born in 5th century BCE. So I generally say that it might be a possibility that Socrates is a reincarnation of Buddha. I mean, at least hypothetically. And he chose a different methodology to enlighten people of Mediterranean basin through reason, logic, and debate. Maybe because they were not ready for the depth of spirituality at that time. We could say that hypothetically, because there was a gap of around 100 years. Okay. So basically, these were the things. They focus on rationality, ethics, and metaphysics. And what was the ethical framework for Socrates, for Greek philosopher? So their idea of living a good life is being virtuous and ethical. And the purpose of being virtuous and ethical was to be live inconsistent with nature, right? Because virtuous act will bring harmony, peace in the society, one thing. In our society, what was the purpose of being ethical? Nirvana, liberation from cycle of birth. This is what the purpose was, that if you do good thing constantly and live in the nature of God, you will be out of the cycle of birth, right? That was one thing. A second was, our ethics was based on non-violence, right? In Jainism, we can't kill the insect, so agriculture was not allowed for certain people who were the devotee, because some things will get killed. So it was fundamental was non-violence, and ethics stem from non-violence, meditation, and living consistent with nature, right? And there in Socrates is a logic and reason, okay, and how Socrates deduct virtue, that will be studied. So this remains the fundamental difference, and also there is a similarity. They both want seek the same thing: to live with consistent with nature, live an ethical life, right? And there's a little difference in methodology. They want to reach that. Okay, so this was the basically idea. And Greek philosophy influenced the Enlightenment and modern scientific method. And in our country, it was like influence Eastern religion and global ethical thoughts. Even today, we striving to be global leader, a spiritual guru, right? Our Narendra Modi says that we will become a spiritual guru, right? And even today, our country is full of gurus, right? And they are guiding our people. We see that Sangha happening everywhere in India, and people from different continents come. So spiritually, beware, and even today, we're far ahead of Western world. Okay, so now see what is similarities. Okay, so this is the similarity. Okay, so both traditions out universal truth and focus on ethical living, emphasize on individual responsibility, right? Grounded in reason, logic, and empirical observation. We can see that. So this is the image, the visual. Okay. So now we'll start with Socrates. Okay, first Greek philosopher was Socrates, and I believe teaching Socrates in one lecture is quite a tall order. It's like emptying the ocean in a teacup. It's a really mountainous task. And when I was reading, it reminded me of Arjun in the midst of the battlefield. Krishna comes to him and explains the essence of Bhagavad Gita in the middle of the battlefield. Right? He condensed entire Bhagavad Gita. So it is something like that. We will try to condense philosophy of Socrates, in a form of conversation, and we'll see and we'll reflect upon that for better understanding. Okay. So Socrates, it is called, he is the eternal inquirer. Socrates has a method to reaching to truth or essence of a matter. Okay, and that method involved dialectic inquiry, questioning things, and then diving deep into the thing to find the truth or the essence of the matter. And Socrates used that method to find the truth of everything through logic, reason, and dialogue. Okay, and Socrates used, in a sense, that become a Socratic method. It become so famous because Socrates developed it. Basically, it involves a dialectic inquiry and digging deep into the things to find the truth and essence of it. So we will understand with an example. Let's say that Socrates was the kind of person that he will roam in the street of Athens, and whenever you see someone, he will just ask you to come here and then start asking you a question. Let's say you're going for a class, he will come to you, ask you, tell me, what is justice? You might say that, oh, justice is I'm too young to answer what justice is. So he might ask you, tell me, what is courage, right? So if Socrates asks you what is courage, what will you say? Right? What will you say if Socrates comes and asks you what is courage?
The right thing without any fear.
Any fear. So that could be translated, courage is standing up to the danger, right? If you might be tempted to say that. But Socrates says, if courage is standing up to danger, so if a person jumps into the ocean and swim with a hungry shark, or maybe he go to the forest and roam around in the jungle where hungry tiger, lions are roaming. So is that justice? Socrates will ask. So you might be tempted to say that maybe courage is application of wisdom as well, right? Because rashness, recklessness is not courage, right? So this is a mini Socratic dialogue. This is how Socrates reached to the depth of the things and uncovered. Okay. So this is one by Socrates. And one major, we already did it in divine command theory when we were studying Euthyphro dilemma. Do you remember? How Socrates, piety and impiety. This is a guy and he claims to know that he knows piety. So he questioned him. He said the piety is following God commands. He said that God, something is good because God commands it. First thing he said. If something is good because God commands it, so there is a problem with that. So God could command something when based on his mood, right? Out of passion, he might command something which is not good, right? If the God mood is good, he will command something good. Bad, command something bad. So that is, it means that God issue commands based on his whims and fancy. It means that that is arbitrary, right? First thing, that's it. How he questioned that. And second thing, he said that if God commands something because that is good in itself, right? So it means that there is a certain standard that is used, God used, then he issues command, right? If there is certain standard from where God derive command, it means that God, there is something God cannot issue against that because there is certain standard, right? So if there is a certain standard that puts limitation on the God, right? So why can't we ourselves go to those standards and deduct our conception of right and wrong, our understanding of ethics and morality, or justice or virtue? So what God, essentially Socrates is doing over here, is eliminating the role of God in ethics and morality or virtue or justice, right? So that is one of the reasons of his trial, because now he is questioning God, right? Imagine back in Athens in that time, 2400 years back. So this is just a Socratic method of getting to the things. So this is the method, Euthyphro dilemma we studied. Now we'll take another example. Now if Socrates asks, what is love, right, for young people? So you might be tempted to say that love is having affection for somebody, right? Then Socrates will say, if love is having affection for somebody, so is it possible to love somebody when you're angry at the person? So you might come to think, I just had a fight with my parents, right? And my parents are angry at me all the time. So does it mean that they do not love you, right? So they love you, right? So yes, it is possible to love someone even when you're angry at something, right? Then he will say, so it means that love is commitment and caring, right? Then Socrates will ask you, if love is commitment and caring, so does it mean that we can love only a people or a person? Is it possible we can love an idea, a belief or a faith? Like we love justice, we love truth, right? But we will not dig any further because Socrates has talked about love in detail in his book, Plato wrote Symposium. So we might take up in our next lecture, okay? Because that will take entire few hours. So this is Socratic method, right? You get it how Socrates inquire into things and try to find the essence, the true essence of anything, right? So today, what will we do today, since we are studying ethics and morality? So today, how Socrates explained the idea of ethics, morality, and virtue through his dialectic inquiry. Okay? Got it till now? Understood Socratic method, right? So we'll go back to the first thing where we started. We started with the book, a story which is written in the book, The Republic, right? We'll go back to that story. Okay? So, Gyges, right? So it is mentioned in Greek mythology. There is a shepherd whose ancestors were in the service of the king. Okay, and one day when he was herding the sheep, he finds a ring, right? Or it's split up. The bronze horse comes and there is a guy in his finger. There is a golden ring. He takes out the ring, right, and find that out that ring makes the wearer invisible. First, he got amusement, right? We know the story, right? Then thought of stealing gold and silver. Then his mind shifts once he gets to the palace. So what he does essentially, he sneaks into the royal palace. Okay, seduces the queen, commits adultery, and then kills the king and acquires the throne. So he becomes the king, a simple shepherd who could not even think of doing such atrocities. When there is a invisibility, he does those atrocities act. So here, invisibility, what it means over here, invisibility, is we are looking not at the person, but at the soul of the person. What invisibility here implies? Getting my point? So we are judging the soul, not the man. Okay? So what? So this story is brought by Glaucon. So there are 4-5 interlocutors here. There's a discussion going on, something like this. Okay. First, he asks those questions before doing that, and that's the basis that why he should be moral and why he should be ethical when nobody could see his action, when there is no consequences of his action. Why should not simply aspire what he wants, either ethically or unethically? Why shall not satisfy his desire, the desire to celebrate the king wife, okay, desire to acquire the throne, and desire to dominate on other people, right? When there is no consequences. So he asks those questions. So this example is used by Glaucon to answer, to question Socrates, that how Socrates explain what is justice, what is ethics and morality. Okay? So Glaucon says, he tells this story to Socrates and says, Socrates, if there is 2 such rings, okay, and one ring is given to the man who is not virtuous like Gyges, so he did all sort of things to acquire power, acquire wealth, to fulfill his animal instincts and desire, right? So even if he gives that ring to a person who is virtuous and who is just, so both will do the same thing. This is what Glaucon says to Socrates. Initially,
Who's the other guy?
Glaucon. There are 4 characters, Glaucon, and there is Admontus, there is Plato, and there is other Athenian youth. Imagine this. Okay.
So this story was shared by Socrates to, like, it was sort of a speech.
This is a dialogue conversation going on. This is taken from the book The Republic. So this is how dialectic inquiry happens. They reach to the truth. Okay, Socratic way. So Glaucon is the brother of Plato. And imagine Glaucon, Admontus, and Plato, and Socrates, and there are other Athenian youth. So all these 4 characters, Glaucon is in his 20s, mid-20s, Admontus is a little younger than this boy, so he's in early 20s, and then Plato is in late 20s, and Socrates in late 60s. These are young. Glaucon is a young individual who wants a career in military and aspire to be general in army of Athens. So he asks these questions. So he says that even if you give ring to a man who is just, he will do the same thing. He will make the same thing. Initially, he might try to resist, right? But on the freedom, the absolute freedom, on his consequences, will tempt him to do wrong, to satisfy his immediate desire, okay, and to fulfill his aspiration, okay, unjustly. Because he cannot control the temptation that invisibility, okay, provides him. So he says, both just man and unjust man will do the same act. They will act unjustly and immorally and do whatever their impulses desire in pursuit of their aspirations. Okay? So this is what Glaucon posed to Socrates, right? It's a difficult problem, right? How Socrates would answer it. If you were Socrates, so Glaucon asks Socrates. So he tells Socrates that morality and ethics is just a mask that we wear, okay, to save ourselves from the consequences. Because if we act unjust, there will be consequences, right? The law of the land, okay, there will be social shame, ostracization in society. So basically, we are moral. Okay, because we fear the consequences that will come from it. Imagine the Gyges, if the ring was not there, if the invisibility would not protect him, do you think he would commit those immoral acts? No, right? So he says morality is just a mask. Okay, and that is morality. So that is first thing he asks. Okay. So he says that being immoral is in nature of human being, in nature of a man, like a human being. Because being immoral makes him happy, right? He could do all sort of things. He could aspire what he wants, and he could be unjust, right? He can satisfy all his desire, his passion for sex, lust, for power, avarice, greed, and the desire to dominate others, because men seek power, right? They will do all sort of things, and because that is in their nature. This is what Glaucon says that. Okay. So he says, first thing, you got it. Morality is a mask. Second, he said that. So we act justly. Certain people act justly because we lack the competence, we lack the capability to act unjust. Gyges lacked the capability. When he got the power, he acted unjust. So people are just because they lack the competence, the ability to do injustice, to become real tyrant. Since they are weak and feeble, that's why they are being ethical, because and that's why, since they lack the capacity to be a real tyrant, a group of weak people come together and form something like social contract. Let's say in society, a group of people come together and say that, well, there's a lot of injustice done to us, and we are more in pain being injustice done to us than we do the injustice we do to others, right? So they are weak and feeble. This is Glaucon says that, and because of that, they come together. All the weak people come together in society and make a social contract. Because injustice done to them hurts them more than the injustice they do to others benefit them. So they come together, the weak people, because they lack the capacity, they lack the ability to do injustice. This is the second thing he said. So a group of people come together and form something like social contract, a social contract, there's a constitution, because nobody will kill, something like that. Okay? So this is the second thing he's saying.
So all these things, this was said by the other side.
This is not important who says that. Understand that. Okay? This is what this is doing. Who said what is not important. Important is that how Socrates come to find out what virtue is and how he explain that. Okay? So this is the Glaucon pose. So there's now Glaucon takes a little rest because he spoke a little too much. His brother Admontus comes in. He said, wait, Glaucon, I have something to say. Glaucon put two things. First, morality is mask, and second, that a group of weak people come together and make something like social contract. Now it's Admontus' turn. But understand that Glaucon is not an immoral man over here. Okay? He's a young man, and Socrates sees the potential to be virtue. So we want to educate them with the idea of virtue, justice, and morality, so that they could become a virtuous person and live in accordance with nature. They're just roughly of our age, mostly. Now, Admontus comes in, and he puts the same thing, two things. They're more or less same. He puts in a different way. He says, Socrates, people are just or virtuous because what it gets us, because it is instrumental to us. Okay. So he says, if we are virtuous, right, so we'll get certain reward, right? So when men tell to their children, their son, that be virtuous, be just, be ethical, because if you are just and ethical, you might be elected for an office, you might made a general in army, okay? Or you might rise high in the estimation of your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, your teacher, your professor. Understand this way. If you go to the civil service interview, right? And even if you are not just, even if you think back of your mind, you will do all sort of corruption and bad things. So will you give the assumption that you are an unjust man? No. You will give an idea that you are a just man, you are a virtuous man, so that you will get few more extra marks. Right? So you're acting just because what it gets you. Right? Same way, if you're writing answers in ethics paper, so you will get an impression that you are someone who is virtuous, you will take the ideal stand. Right? Because it might get few extra marks, and that will ensure reflection. So Admontus is saying here that we are just, we are moral or ethical because what it gets us. Because it is instrumental. We are using justice and ethics as a tool, as an instrument, right? But he is not satisfied with the one argument. He puts another Admontus. said, imagine there's a man, right? And we all do mistakes, right? So let's say that there's also line Pope Alexander once said, to err is human, to forgive is divine, right? So he said that a man in pursuit of his aspiration do all sort of unjust. Let's say he wants to become a politician. He kill his opponent, he threat and intimidate people who stand against them, even the voters, right? But he's a wise one, he's a clever fellow, right? So he covered all the unjust act, okay? And giver acquires honor, reputation to be just because he successfully covered it. He do all sort of good things after winning the election, and in a society, he gets a reputation of just, but he is an unjust man. So Admontus saying is that he is an unjust man, right? So he getting benefits of being unjust, right? His desire, his aspiration getting fulfilled by being unjust very fast. At the same time, he is having the benefits of being just in society, right? So he can have the both of the world, right? From here, what Admontus' second argument is making that it relates to divine command theory. Let's say that unjust man acquires a lot of wealth, acquires power, and take control of all religious places, right? So now he offered the right kind of sacrifice to save himself from the wrath of the god, right? We have seen that in many cultures, people offer sacrifice to save themselves with the wrath of God, to save themselves from divine retribution. So second point, what Admontus is making over here is that even we do wrong, right? We can, by God, we can give certain percentage to the God, we offer right amount of sacrifices, right amounts of rituals, and we save ourselves from wrath of God and divine retribution, right? So this was the second one. Now, Admontus also says here that we use so if you say divine command theory, we'll say that people, if you do something wrong, right? So there will be a fear of divine retribution and we might go to hell. If you do something right, consistently ethical, so we'll gain credit for heaven and we'll go to heaven. So again, we are using this, Admontus will say we are using even divine command theory as an instrumental, right? Because it gets us something and when we fear the consequences. So we are using morality as instrumental, not because it is intrinsically good, because what it gets us, right? You got these 2 points that Admontus put and 2 points that Glaucon puts, right? Sorry? He's trying to say that we are using morality as instrumental, because as instrumental something it gets to us. Like in interview, you try to be a virtuous person because you get the good marks, right? Right. Okay. So now Socrates heard the both and he takes the pen and writes, okay, it's not working. So discussion comes, there are 3 kinds of goods, okay? I assume that you know understand what it means to be instrumental, right? Because what it gets you, right? So he said there's three kinds of good. Good which is good in itself, it means that intrinsically good, such as joy. It is good in itself, not because it gets us something. Joy, happiness, health, is it good in itself, right? Because not because it gets us something. So it is intrinsically good, intrinsically rewarding. It is good in itself. Same way, instrumental, it could be money, wealth. Money is instrumental in the sense that money does not have an intrinsic value, but what it gets, right? You can use money, you can buy the things that you want, right? So it is instrumental. From wealth, the same way. If you have money, you can buy whatever you want. You wish to travel, you can travel. So it is instrumental. So other kind of good is instrumental. And the third kind of good, which is intrinsically good as well as instrumental. So tell me, where virtue, where ethics falls? Yes, Ansika, tell me. You understand there are three kinds of goods?
I got intrinsic, not instrumental. Instrumental is something leading to.
Maybe you were not listening. I said instrumental thing is good is money. Money is instrumental because it does not have any value in itself. With money, you can buy whatever you want. I mean, money is.
Goodbyes, yes.
Understand that? He said there are three kinds of good. One good is intrinsically good, which is good in itself, like joy. Joy, being happy, is good in itself, intrinsically rewarding, not because it gets us something. But money is good because it gets us something. We can buy things from it. That's why money is good. So money is instrumental. Okay, wealth because we get something. Right? So that is the second. And the third is, which is both intrinsically rewarding as well instrumental. So tell me, where virtue and ethics will fall?
Last.
Instrumental. Think. First tell me, did you understand the three kinds of good is explained over here?
Yes.
So tell me where justice falls. Where justice, ethics and morality fall. So which is intrinsically good, instrumental?
Yes.
So I will explain this how. Let's say that there is a judge, right? He upholds justice. This judge, certain case comes to him, he uphold justice, he give judgment as per the constitution, as per the natural law, right? So he will have a certain satisfaction that he uphold justice, right? So that is intrinsic. He will have satisfaction, he feel good about it, right? When we do certain good things, we will feel good about it. Even as Ayashi serve the society, you will feel good about it, right? When you save somebody's life, you feel good about it, right? So that is intrinsic. Intrinsic is that when the judge is upholding justice, so there will be peace and harmony in society. There will be a rule of law. The society will prosper. So that is something extrinsic. You're getting it? Even if you... Okay. So justice, here says both intrinsically good and instrumental good. But Socrates does not stop here. So Admontus put another argument over here. He says, imagine a man who is unjust. No, imagine a man who is just. Imagine a man who is virtuous. Okay? And he has a reputation to be unjust and virtuous, not virtuous. Let's say that people started something, gossip, misinformation spread. Now all other people believe that information without being critical, right? So all people turns against him. Even he is just or virtuous, they confiscate his property, right? They torture him, burn him, kill him, and do all sort of bad things to him. But this man is virtuous and just. So Admontus asks, Socrates, show me a just man who is reputed to be unjust and all sort of bad things has happened to him is better than unjust man who is reputed to be just. Did you get this? I'll say it again. Admontus says, Socrates, there is an unjust man, there is a just man, man who is virtuous, but some reason or the other, he got the reputation of being unjust. People think he's not a good man, maybe due to rumor or people ignorance, right? And they do all sort of bad things to him. They take away his property, okay, torture him, or maybe kill him. So Admontus asks, Socrates shows me how the life of a just man who is reputed to be unjust is better than an unjust man who is reputed to be just. Getting it? He asked Socrates. So before Socrates asks that question, I want to ask you something. Okay? So imagine there is two IAS. Okay? One IAS is very honest, virtuous, and he follows all the foundational values of civil services. He's impartial, he has high integrity, he's compassionate, and he's dedicated to public service, and he's also non-partisanship. He follows all the foundational values of civil services, and he works in the constitution and consistent with constitutional framework. But since he's not corrupt, he don't take the share in his corruption, all his colleagues are insecure, feel insecure, and give hard time to him at the workplace. And the seniors and superiors, the politicians, call him and ask him to file on those signs and do the work which are not consistent with law. So they intimidate him, threat him. Okay, mafia people threat him, threat his life and family. So he's constantly unhappy, but at the same time he's do his duty with integrity, but he's unhappy in his fear. Constant fear of threat, intimidation, pressure. Now there is another IAS officer who compromises with whenever it pleases him. He has a good bonds with all the political leaders, with the mafias and the colleague, because he takes share in the corrupt money, and he compiled by by the politician and his superiors, even if they are not consistent with the law. And he has a good amount of money, he acquired good wealth, the children as well, and he living a happy life. So I ask you, as a citizen, not as aspiring civil servant, imagine you are in 40s and 50s, no longer you can write civil service exam. Now tell me which one you would pick. The just civil servant who is unjust? Huh?
Just.
You too? Just? Now you are an aspiring civil servant. Tomorrow you might become civil servant. So which one will you choose to be?
I still choose just.
You? Some people might change because the position is changed, right? Because you become a stakeholder as a citizen, because if you act unjust, you might be at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think so? Why do you pick that?
So it's because the comfort in like continuing the procedure, maybe when it comes to the procedure or process of administration, then I'm giving this discussion based on the last minute we had this time discussion. Based on the process becomes easier. Then because daily administration would require peace of mind as well. And every time if you are dealing with all of those things this is a practical aspect. This is not
okay, I get it. Now just look at these three kinds of goods. Okay, we go to the Socrates. Let's see how Socrates deal with that. So did you understand what Admontus asked Socrates? That Socrates, show me that what he's trying to say that is a very tricky thing over here. What he's trying to ask that? He's trying to ask to Socrates and ask him to show me that even by being just, by being moral, if we are not getting any reward, but we are getting punishment. Getting my point? Think of Jesus. He was a just man, but he was reputed to be unjust. What happened to him? They killed him, they tortured him, they crucified him. Think of Socrates himself, right? The sentence in death by poison, but he was a just man. We have many examples. Gandhi was shot, and we have so many examples. So here what Edmonton is asking Socrates, show me that even if justice or being ethical is not getting any external reward, but in fact all the bad things is happening to him. So tell me, even after that, how justice is good, how being virtuous and how being ethical is good and valuable. Right? It's very complex. Right? I believe only Socrates could answer this. Right? Do you have any idea? What do you want to try?
So, like, just getting into this thing would be principally good and instrumental. I think justice ethics would be instrumental as well. I mean, of course, it's intrinsically good, but instrumental in the sense of, again, connecting the dots with the administration and Socrates' point of view and the dialectic view. And, like, I'm again thinking from an administration perspective, it would also, help in gaining social capital. I think we had already talked about it in previous classes, that how an administrator, being ethical and a just person, it helps to gain the trust of the masses. And that would make administration.
Yeah, we agree. We are not refuting that justice is something which is both instrumental and both intrinsically rewarding. We take the example of a judge. But now Edmonton is asking Socrates, now imagine there is no external reward from this. You're not getting the reward from being just. In fact, instead of getting reward, all bad things is getting done to you. Despite that, show me. Asking Socrates, see what Socrates does, he gets depth into that and find the essence of it. No compromise. No middle path. Okay? So you're asking, show me. Despite that, there is no having instrumental or external benefits. Right? Jesus, think of Jesus. All bad things happen to him. Think of Socrates. He could have compromised, he could have saved life. So what we are discussing in moral heroism, there is no compromise. We are not trying to reach to a compromised position of justice. So that's why Edmonton is asking is, show me that despite not having any instrumental benefits or reward, in fact, what the person is getting is punishment. He is being tortured. All his property is confiscated. Even Jesus was crucified, so does Socrates, so does Gandhi, and there's so many examples. So despite that, why? They choose to be ethical and moral and to act just. This is what Socrates, Edmonton asked to Socrates. Okay? So you understood, right?
So, just because we use that word in between, the middle path. So do you think, the concept middle path, like,
so that's different thing. Middle path is different thing that we'll talk about Aristotle. When we study Socrates, we are talking about moral heroism, and there is no compromise with moral heroism. Think of Socrates. Did he compromise with that? I mean, you might say practically, okay, compromise, just run away, go to the different city and preach to the other people. I mean, we would not have been studying Socrates right now. Neither Gandhi, Imagine if they compromised with their values. We are talking about moral heroism. We are getting into what truly virtue is. Got it. So now Socrates comes up and says, well, I'm overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task and complexity that he posed, young man. And actually Socrates was waiting for this argument. He wanted them to dive deep so that he come up and then explain them what virtue is. This is how Socrates always let other people speak and question them, and then he enters at the end to explain things. That's why this method is so popular that we call it Socratic method. So Socrates gives a here the thing he says that he talk about soul. He said we all individual have a soul, right? And this is further developed by Plato, that will be studied later, that is called tripartite of soul. But here Socrates, that has more sophisticated version of Socrates itself. But here Socrates says that when someone act immoral, okay, or unjust, what they are doing is that they are corrupting their soul. And he says that justice is to the soul what health is to the body. Okay? Justice is to the soul, or morality is to the soul what health is to the body. We understand with an example. It's so that you keep eating crap year by year. Okay? A time will come, you'll fall sick. Right? Still it keep coming. So if you fall sick, right? So your health is bad. So what damage it will do to your body? A time will come, then your body will collapse. Right? So Socrates says justice or moral act, okay, is to the soul what health is to the body. Okay? So justice is nourishment of the soul. When we act virtually and when we act justly, what we are nourishing is soul. And we do immoral and unjust, what we are doing is we are corrupting our soul. Okay? So even if we are not getting any reward, even if we are getting punishment, it is important that we preserve our soul. Okay? Because if we corrupt our soul, a time will come that our soul will collapse. Right? So this is Socratic idea. Even back then the Christianity was not developed. It was, okay, 6th century BC. It was. So it is essentially consistent with Christianity, and it is consistent with Hinduism as well. And I believe it is consistent with all major religions, right? Because all religion value soul. It said in Hinduism that Atma kabhi nahi marta. Unless Atma is pure, it cannot have a fusion with Paramatma, right? And in Christianity, it is also said that the importance of soul is very given immense importance in all religions, right? In fact, so even the Gita says the soul is neither born nor does it die. The soul is birthless, eternal, and it is never destroyed when the body is destroyed. This is the Gita. And Bible says, blessed are the pure heart, for they shall see God. Pure heart, they are talking about soul. So all religion emphasize the importance of soul, and when we corrupt our soul, we have implication, and we go by divine command theory in this life and afterlife as well. Right? Got it? What Socrates is trying to say? Emphasizing that when we do act or immoral, we corrupt our soul, and a time will come when our soul will corrupt enough that will be in a moral chaos. And soul is eternal. I believe Socrates believes that too. And all religion says that. Okay? What religious idea is that, the God created us out of from dust, and He put soul in our body, and that's what we become human. And once we die, the soul will go to the God, and the body will remain over here, again turning to dust. This is the religious idea. But Socrates put emphasis on soul. Okay? And that was the first thing what Socrates said. The second thing, how the Socrates will solve the Gyges dilemma. So we'll say that Gyges act those immoral acts because he lacked moral education. Okay? So he committed those acts out of ignorance. He said that is the result of bad education. So if he was morally educated, he wouldn't have done that. This is what Socrates says. So now we'll pause. Now think about civil services. So they have kept the syllabus from 2013, right? So maybe they believe in Socrates, right? So they want to teach us morally aware, moral education. So we might be more inclined to be moral or ethical, right? This is essentially a Socratic idea that teach them the moral knowledge, make them morally excellent by giving them good education, right? So this is called moral intellectualism, Socrates. Socrates said no one do wrong knowingly. Okay, they do wrong out of ignorance. Okay. Socrates also said that immoral action, okay, so even if they bring external reward, like Gyges, he got the kingdom, right, and he got all the sort of things. So even if they bring external reward, it is intrinsically bad, it is not consistent with nature, and that will corrupt our soul, and we will have inner turmoil, right? So we all have conscience. So whenever we do wrong, right, we feel into moral chaos, right? You might have seen that even do a small wrong, cheat in exam, okay, or any small act will you do, feel your conscience does not allow. Even Saint Aquinas said that he who act against their conscience commits sin, right? So there's two things in Socrates' moral intellectualism. Said that when someone does wrong, what they are doing, they are corrupting their soul, and if they keep doing it, they will fall in moral chaos, because justice to the soul is like health to the body. We'll take the analogy, right? And whenever someone constantly doing just, they are giving nutrition to the soul, right? So even at the death, they will appear at a happy state, right? So now imagine at the your deathbed and thinking about all the bad acts you did. So if you look back, and if in those bad acts, killing somebody's, looting, robbing, bring those benefits at that moment, I don't think you will be proud of it when at the time of departure. What do you think? I don't think Gyges will be, if you look back of his action, right? At the end of the deathbed, do you think? I don't think so.
So most of the people have innocence.
No, but we could.
Don't really, yeah, I mean that's the worst part when they start thinking about their life at the deathbed, and if they have done wrong things.
Yeah, maybe that Socrates will say they lack moral knowledge and they are ignorant people. They cannot understand the depth, the importance of soul, and what it does. Okay, so first thing Socrates said that soul, that we corrupt soul, and second that we act out of ignorance. We lack moral knowledge. Okay, if somebody is morally aware, so we'll not do wrong. So this is first part was consistent with religion, Christianity, Hinduism, all religions. Second part is not necessarily consistent with religion, because Socrates said that you need to have moral knowledge, right, to act morally and ethically. But what our religion says, pure heart is essential. Even a child, if he has a pure heart, he will act justly. Atma ka pavitra hona is important. Right? So it is not Socrates, it's saying one has to be morally educated, but illiterate people could be virtuous, right? Because even Jesus said that if you want to come to the kingdom of heaven, come like a childlike heart. There is something like that. Okay, and there's a story in our mythologies that when Ram was exiled in the forest, right? And there was a lady, Sabri, the devotee of Ram. She bring berries. The berries were already tested to make sure they are sweet, right? So when Lakshman sees it, it's Jutha, he just throw it away. But Ram eat it because he valued the purity of her heart. And there was no wrath of the god, no divine retribution. It was purity of heart, right? So our religion values the purity of heart. Even when we do certain wrongs happens in pure intention leads to unintended consequences. Even there is no divine retribution, at least even we do not feel that turmoil in that same intensity, right? So pure heart. But somehow I believe in Socrates. I have no criticism for Socrates' moral when he said that we lack education to understand. Because if we truly have the knowledge, the moral knowledge, okay, if we truly understand the importance of soul, and if somehow a bit religious and have faith in God, and we understand that soul is something which never dies, as Gita says, soul is never born, it never dies, it is impermissible, it cannot be destroyed. And even our Matthew verses in Bible, it says that fear not those who can kill your body, but fear those who can kill your body but could destroy your soul as well, right? So if we have that understanding of soul and the importance the soul has, because it is eternal, it never dies, if we add religious flavor to that. Now imagine soul is something which is eternal, which is immortal, never dies. So is it worth compromising our soul with something that gives you a short time pleasure? Now imagine how the eternity is, 500 million years, maybe more, or billion years, and how this life is. Even let's say that 10 years of pleasure, 20, even 30, let's say 60. So how small 60 years is, 1 million year compared with that? If we have little religious inclination and believe the importance of soul and have moral education, do you think we will still act those? We give way to our impulses? If we truly have that knowledge, the depth understanding of soul, I think we will resist our temptation, I think. As the Bible said that, what shall benefit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? I mean, what price will you put on your soul to corrupt it? Is there any price? Is there any kingdom that you are willing to sell your soul for? Do you think there is anything worth selling your soul?
No.
You think? If we truly understand the value of soul, I think we will able to have control on our flesh and our immediate animal desire. If we could understand the soul is immortal, eternal, that never dies, and is not worth corrupting our soul by acting immoral to fill our immediate gratification, immediate desire, our lust for power, our lust for sex, avarice, and our desire to dominate others. Right? Do you agree with that? I'm not a critic, not necessarily a critic to ignorant part, because in this sense, what Socrates would have talked about. Okay.
So, strong moral intellectualism, this means being knowledgeable.
Yeah, the knowledge. If you have moral intellect that you have ignorant, then Socrates will say we will not do wrong. We do wrong out of ignorance.
So moral, this term morality, is it a brain thing or a heart thing?
It is awareness. Okay.
What?
Awareness that doing wrong. Let's say there is a thief, right? He steals something, right? Let's say he steals money from the bank, ATM goods. So he thinks that stealing will make him happy temporarily, but if he knows that it will corrupt his soul, his awareness of it, the importance of it, so he might not steal it. This is what Socrates tells.
This awareness.
Which awareness that's wrong is wrong. Now you are aware that if you do something, there is a implication of that. You can't simply get away with that. You will corrupt your soul. That is the awareness. I mean, what? I mean, it's not. There's no requirement of segregating. It's a brain thing, a heart thing. There's just same thing. There's just two components in heart. One is emotive, and one is rational. So if you understand by both, it is better. There's just one emotive component, one is rational component. We'll discuss that. So there are many things that Socrates, we have missed that trial of Socrates, and there's a oracle of Delphi, and few other things that we'll take in the next class. Okay, so before we embark, we'll pay our homage to Socrates for this remarkable explain to us the idea of virtue, justice. Okay, and I really wonder that if Socrates could hear us from heaven, he might be tempted to ask that, is it really my teaching that you just explained? For that, we could humbly, reply to Socrates. Socrates asked Plato because he wrote the notes. Because Socrates wrote nothing. His student Plato wrote the book Republic, and from there we read it and explain what Socrates says. Okay, but Plato has developed his idea of soul in more intellectually sophisticated way that will be studied when we're studying Plato. But I don't want it to intermingle it. Okay, we need to pay what due to Socrates. Okay. Okay. Thank you. If anything, you can ask me.
So Socrates did exist, right?
Yeah, of course it did exist.
I mean, what I mean is because Plato was writing about it. So, I mean, is there any other evidence other than Plato's writing?
Yeah, there's of course evidence. Yeah, there's so many evidence. So when we are digging deep into evidence,
I haven't really, gone into depth. So
well, I don't know anybody who has gone into depth. It's my hobby, so I get into depth. Since as a little bit.
I mean, that has been my subject. That's why I'm asking.
Even in the subject, it is not given in details. It's just like superficial on the surface of it. I believe that unless you have a depth of moral understanding, I want people to have the depth of moral understanding. I enjoy teaching Socrates, talking about him, so that's good.
So basically, Socrates का भी एक virtue is not necessary. उसके पीछे background of
I read so many books. No, how was it? I mean, did you get the idea of everything? Did you understand?
So, however, could you please share the notes today exam class?
Notes is just those images. I'll send you those.
Yeah, I just wanted to because
Yeah, I'll send you. This is not just a few images there.
why wasn't it?
Okay. Did you get it into? Because this is how Socrates delved deep into the things. See how he explained the virtue. First, he divided goods into three kinds, right? And explained that even if it is not reward, still it is good to be virtuous. So, are you satisfied with the explanation of Socrates about justice and virtue or not? Not satisfied? Satisfied? Or you have anything to add or criticize? Yeah, I can speak. We can go later if you are not in a hurry. We can talk.
So जैसे situation है कि जैसे किसी को अच्छा करते हैं तो वो सोल को डैमेज करता है, और जो गलत करें वो सोल को डैमेज करता है. किसी ने गलत किया है पर पूरे जो वर्ल्ड के लिए वो बहुत अच्छा होगा है, वो बहुत ज़्यादा फायदा.
Yeah, we'll study. We'll study that. My idea is that we'll discuss all the framework. This is Socrates' framework, and when you talk about pragmatism, this is a blasphemy when we bring to Socrates. There are certain individuals, they guide our path. They are the torchbearer, and there is no room for compromise. There is no room for pragmatism. Imagine if Socrates has compromised. Imagine if Jesus Christ has compromised. Some individuals are heroic. They're angels in forms of human. And because they do not compromise, because they do not fear death, because they stand for justice despite all the threats to their life, threats to their family, whatever happens to them. They keep their soul intact and they guide our path. So there is no room for pragmatism that you are talking about. Not in case of Socrates. Okay? There's other things. We'll study Machiavelli, we'll study Friedrich Nietzsche, John Rawls. Maybe we can talk about humanly virtue.
So I'm quite impressed with Socrates thinking that if Socrates would have been in India, probably he would have been made God very quickly. Like, if, I mean, the way he sounds spiritual, but at the same, but in Greece, he was more taken as a philosophy. But if you just come to India, then you would have probably been a God very quickly.
You knew about Socrates before the class?
Sorry?
You knew about Socrates, how he reached to virtue before the class?
No.
So this class, it means you understood, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But no, I was just